Hey, lovelies. It's just rained here, and it's done so in a particularly Oregonian way. Um, this kind of gentle sheeting of water, just like, just really gentle droplets wafting down, and the sun's still shining, you know. And now I think there's no more rain. The air, though, feels kind of moist. um, a minute ago. I mean, it's 8:30 p.m. and a minute ago, the birds were singing. They're like, ah, the day is here. It just, everything feels very light and alive, and it's so Oregonian. In Oregon, when water and fire or light come together, they do so as gentle rain and uh, sunlight, and the end result is rainbows. I've seen more incredible rainbows in my time in Oregon than, by far than anywhere I've ever lived. I ever lived before. As I was saying yesterday, um, Oregon is not a place where the whole idea of thunderstorms and lightning is a common thing. I mean, that's typically not how fire or light and water come together in the form of um, thunderstorms with jagged shards of electricity coursing through the air. Instead of lightning bolts, we get rainbows. Um, and uh, and I think that is one of the things I intuited about Oregon when I first moved here. You know, years ago now. I remember first getting off the plane, and it was like February, and it was moist. The ground was really rich and dark, and that kind of black earth that just seems so fertile and fecund and alive. And the air was so soft. I mean, there was fog, right? It was foggy. The air was filled with water, but it felt so soft and sweet. Um, and it smelled so good. And little did I know that this sweet, wonderful air would also be, a place that's really difficult if you have pollen allergies, which I didn't have at the time, but I do now because I've lived here long enough that my body's like, the spores have come out. Um, Little did I know that the sweetness of the air here might have some drawbacks, but it was that softness, that sweetness. I think Oregon for me represented a place, and still does, where the jagged angles of my heart could be softened. And that's kind of what I want to think about tonight with you guys, thinking about the tower and coming back to, the classic Waite-Smith image where the lightning bolt is this jagged zigzag that is deliberately recalling the Kabbalistic tree of life. That diagram with the 10 sphirot, these 10 spheres that represent maybe 10 aspects of consciousness or 10 aspects of divinity, and where the whole starting, at the top and moving down, that movement through the tree of life, that zigzagging dialectical movement through the tree of life represents, in Kabbalah, the emanation of divinity into creation. How does spirit get into matter? Here's how. The tree of life maps that. And then from a kind of esoteric, mystical, magical perspective, if we think about not the tree of life starting up at the top at Keter, but starting at the bottom, moving up, zigzagging up, we have a roadmap for how to manifest the spiritual, how to transcend the material in rising toward divinity. So it's a map of creation. It's a map of transcendence, um, and of this pathway through the various aspects of life, of consciousness, of the sacred, of the profane, of creation, of what is beyond creation. Tree of Life is a map of all of that. And, it's built into the Waite-Smith tarot, and it's built into the tower as a moment of divine ignition, right? For me, as a Buddhist, striving for a practice that allows me to live in a non-dualist perspective, I mean, which is crazy. It's like the minute I start talking about me wanting to live in a non-dualist perspective, I've created a, a dichotomy, a dualism, but that sense that, spiritual endeavor is all about actually trying to heal the schism between self and other, between the profane and the sacred. Um, the tree of life is a powerful mandala, a powerful map, um, mystical framework, but it reinforces a sense that there's divinity over there, and then there's, like, the profane, the fallen, the merely material over here. It reinforces a sense of higher and lower, and the tarot is full of that. That's why, for me, I've worked to see the ways in which the tarot can be a tool for the healing of dualism, and that's what a mindful tarot for me is all about. And it's for that reason that it's hard for me to see the tower as just being this cataclysmic, um, sharp burst. Instead, I keep wanting uh, to see the tower as being a different kind of opportunity. So I was reminded of all this when I pulled out a deck I haven't been working with lately, but I was working with a lot earlier in the year, Pamela Eakin's Terror of the Spirit, and reminded I mean, there's something about the artwork in this deck that just speaks to me really deeply. And my readings with the deck have all been really powerful. So here's her tower, and her deck is really explicitly, I mean, it was painted with the paintings were drawn onto the tree of life. All of the paintings have mapped into them this structure. So this is, let's see if I can, this is the transparency of the tree of life that comes with the 20th anniversary edition of her deck. And that you can use that and overlay it onto the cards to see what she's mapping in each of these images. But see how the tower really is bespeaking that kind of dialectical, zigzaggy pathway to insight. It really is about a kind of movement away from the material crumbling so that the spiritual can emerge. It has that kind of sharpness and that angularity to it of, I think, of a kind of either or dualist perspective, where either we're material and fallen or we are liberated, free, and spiritual. Either we're living in our lower being or we've risen to our higher selves. And Pamela Eakin's deck is all about how do we raise the vibrations? How do we pick ourselves up from, just turn off the beeping of my computer. How do we pick ourselves up from our fallen natures? Well, that to me is problematic. That idea that there is something fallen. As I've been trying to say, I think in the past few videos a lot, we're always falling and we're always rising back up. This is the movement of breath. Rising, falling, rising, falling. This is the movement of life. I keep saying this. I think I'm like a one-trick pony. I keep saying the same thing over and over again. So, so I was thinking, what is it? What is the, it's stupid to even say it this way, but what is the goal of my spiritual practice? Really? What am I really aiming for? I mean, I can talk about healing the divide between self and other, or that kind of dualism between high and low, or good or bad, profane or sacred. But at a much more visceral level, what am I aiming for? And I realized what I've been thinking this for a while. I didn't just realize it today, but I want to soften, you know? I want the angularity of my soul, the sharp, jabby, reactive, heavily structured and rigid sort of, I am this, Lisa is this. I want that to soften. I want to be porous, permeable. I want to be softened by the rain, you know? I want to be softened by the world that I'm also a part of. So, I remember I work with these amazing inmates. They have an ongoing sitting group. These are men who've been down for a long time and have been sitting together for a long time, and they're truly Dharma brothers. They're just incredible. I mean, um, I go to them as the representative, right, the sort of religious volunteer representative, but they are they are teaching me. And I remember one of them. This was a few years ago now. He said, Myoban, that's my Dharma name, Myoban. You've changed. I was like, I have? He said, yeah, you're much softer now. You're much softer now. You know, um, at first I was like, what do you mean? Wasn't I soft before? And I realized, no, no. When I first started sitting with these men, I was like, oh, but to learn from a guy behind bars how to be soft, that is powerful. Yeah, that is powerful. So is the tower ever about softness? Or is it just about the kind of jagged breaks of, those jagged dialectical moments where this comes against this, and things transform, those moments of ignition? Is the tower just sharp edged? Is it ever soft? I don't know. I was trying to think about what deck might give me a soft tower, and the deck I came to maybe inevitably was the Roots of Asia. The deck, I can never remember this artist's name because it is, uh, uh, I think he's Thai. I think that he's Thai. Tawan Bunyawan. Um, actually, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know much about him. Um, I'm looking at. I mean, he's a student of Ajahn Chah, so it's Theravada Buddhism. This is a Xerox of the um, Little White Book, a PDF of it. So this is his tower. So there's the tower right there, embedded in a human form. Now, what he says about the tower is that the tower is about the dissolution of ego. But he's not saying that the ego is torn down. He's talking about this recognition of the ego as an illusion. We build these structures as if they are ourselves, and they tumble down because we are so much bigger than the self we build. I love how, the tower here is in the chest, and how the chest is filled with light and shards of stuff, and the flame is here, and it's very pointy, but the elements of the human form all around it. The tower uh, isn't anything other than us, but we're so much bigger than it. We're so much greater than either this structure or destruction that we experience. Can we be as soft as the rain? I don't know. I think that's all I have tonight. I'm sort of trailing off. I realize, I don't have some grand synthesis of this whole smorgasbord. Um, but yeah, I think that's what I have. As always, I'm so grateful that you're here with me, and Thank you for your practice.